Welcome to I Hate It Here, the podcast for HR and people professionals, making the hardest job in the world just a little bit easier. I'm Hiba Youssef.
I think accountability just means that everybody, like I said, is playing by the same set of rules, right? Like that when, I report harassment, that it's going to be taken seriously and not brushed off or, swept under the rug because it's an executive or because it's a white man, right? Or, that when I go up for promotion, that everybody is going to be measured against performance and there's not going to be other things that are not related to performance that come into the decision-making process that result in me not getting promoted.
Managing people shouldn't feel like you're juggling while you're blindfolded. Lattice can help as your all-in-one HR platform that scales with your business and keeps everyone happy. It's the best of both worlds, stellar people programs and a modern HRIS all-in-one. With Lattice, you can really have it all. No trade-offs, no regrets. Multi-state compliance is a nightmare, but 650 makes it easy. Get instant questions to employment law questions, generate a compliant multi-state handbook in minutes, and stay ahead of changing laws with automated updates. Visit SIXFIFTY.com to learn more. That's 650.com. Welcome back to another episode of your favorite HR person's favorite HR podcast. I'm your host and resident hater, Hiba, here to deliver a healthy dose of snark and tips in your ears today. This entire season, I'm diving into employees' hopes, wishes, and dreams. And today's fill in the blank is employees just want accountability and equitable outcomes. And I'm fangirling a bit right now because I'm so excited to introduce you to today's guest who's going to talk about why employees want that and how you can actually deliver it, Cierra Gross. Cierra Gross is the founder and CEO of Worklution, pioneering workplace advocacy through 2 brands she bootstrapped to $1 million+ in revenue in 2 years. Through Cagebird HR, she provides independent HR support to employees nationwide, while Wrk Receipts is a free AI-powered app that tells employees in real time if their workplace rights have been violated. Prior to founding Worklution, she led HR initiatives at Google and ExxonMobil. She holds a political science degree from UNC Greensboro and a master's in HR from the University of South Carolina. I have been such a big fan. I've loved all your content and all the amazing things you're working on. Cierra, welcome to the pod.
Thank you. We've been trying to get this thing done for months and months and months, but I'm glad that we finally got time on the calendar to come and just talk all things HR because there's a lot to talk about these days.
It's so much. I mean, you're booked and busy and I'm terrible at scheduling things. So the fact that we made this happen, I'm just so honored you're going to take time out of your busy day and all the great things you're working on to drop some knowledge for people listening, because I know you have opinions on a lot of this stuff.
I do. Although people say like, oh, I'm not as active on LinkedIn, and there's a reason for that. But I do have lots of things to say, and I'm glad to be able to have a conversation with you today.
I love it. Okay, so this season, I always do like a fun opening question, and I'm asking every guest, what's one truth about work you wish more leaders understood?
That the things that employees are asking for are really not that hard. It's just that these companies just don't want to, and you have a lot of words to say that. They use a lot of words, but it's really not that hard. And I think that they're going to be forced here in the next probably decade or so to really make some changes relative to how employees are treated, the way that HR is executed, et cetera. And I think they're just going to have to come to grips with that either you're going to do it or you're not. And if you're not, it's not because it's impossible, it's because you simply don't want to. And, that has its own merit, right? We do live in a capitalist society and there are, downsides to doing one thing or another, upsides, pros and cons, if you will. But I think the days of lying about that are over.
Sorry, I'm just laughing because I always say I would have so much more respect for leaders if they just said, we just don't want to do that. Not like, oh, I can't do it, it's too hard. I just want to hear you say, I just don't want to do that.
We're just not going to.
My friend Tara made the point recently where it's like all these companies that are pulling back their DEI statements. It's like nobody's telling them they have to do that. And she's like, you should pay attention to the ones that are doing it because no one's forcing them to be clear. They're choosing to opt out and they're telling you everything you need to know.
Yeah. We're in a very, very interesting time of America. This season of America is very, very interesting.
I would like this to not be our season finale, to be honest, or series finale, but it's kind of feeling like it. Everyone who listens to me hears me talk about this all the time. I'm just like, I'm seriously concerned for our future, but like, that's what this podcast is for, honestly. That's what I Hate It Here is really all about. It's like, how do we actually build a better future? I think HR people have so much power to do it. And I hope we can get to a better place because we desperately need it. Like, people are not happy at work.
No, they're miserable.
Yeah. Okay. So on that note, on that note, why do you think accountability and equitable outcomes are top priorities for employees right now?
So I don't think that I think this has been a top priority for employees. I think that perhaps companies are now starting to realize maybe just how serious the downstream impacts of not having accountability and not having equity as a focus as DEI is rolled back and eliminated or rebranded. What does that actually mean? I think we can look at Target, and not even from an employee perspective, but from a consumer perspective of what it means when you deprioritize these things and the backlash of doing so. And so I don't necessarily think that it's a top priority for employees right now. It's always been a top priority for employees, especially people of color and Black people who speak into accountability. The only thing that we've ever wanted is everybody to be playing by the same set of rules. Like, we just want to start all on the same starting line. Because y'all could never DEI hire me. We could go degree for degree. We could go resume for resume. But if I'm always starting 20 feet behind, then it's not to say that I'm not going to catch up with you. It's just going to take me longer. And so I think that, accountability and equitable outcomes has always been a focus for employees. I think it's just now being shined in a spotlight because so many companies are rolling back DEI efforts either for business reasons or because they're just like, we're just going to take advantage of the opportunity to not have to do these things. And I think that, you can get on TikTok or LinkedIn or any of these social media platforms to see exactly how people feel about that.
So angry. Some people, I think what's that phrase they're saying, the quiet part out loud now? A lot of people feel emboldened to say the quiet part out loud.
Yeah, Cage Bird. So, for example, our flagship brand, Cage Bird, we were the first to provide employees access to independent HR support all across the country. Okay, so we're in all 50 states. We've heard stories of managers coming into the office and saying, DEI is over now. I can say N-word.
Oh.
Front of an entire room of people.
Excuse me.
They're absolutely saying the quiet part out loud. The racism is now emboldened. And I think it's just so funny because it's like, okay, DEI is not necessarily the law, but the 1964 Civil Rights Act is. And it is still illegal to go into the workplace and use racial slurs. Like, that is blanket, like, discrimination, hostile work environment. But it's just that lack of understanding is that these managers, as you know, as an HR girly, managers are not equipped to support employees in the workplace.
Mm-mm.
We talk about like, oh, this HR is not your friend, yada, yada, yada. I'm thinking to myself, y'all have no clue how little support managers are actually given. And that's part of the reason why they just be in there doing any old thing, whether it aligns with the policy or not.
Yeah. Also, HR is not your friend. Like, to be clear.
No, HR is absolutely 100% unequivocally not your friend. I don't even think that that's a debate anymore.
No. And I love when people try to say that to hurt my feelings, though. And I'm like,
or CHROs will try to argue something different. But it's like, I think that's why Cage Bird has been so successful because we're a third party entity. We don't have a dog in the fight. I don't really care what's good for your company, to be quite honest with you. That's not how I eat every day. It's not how my staff eats every day. And a lot of us, we've experienced, trauma in the workplace ourselves. And so we can approach this work from a place of empathy and understanding, which a lot of HR professionals in the workplace, they're not going to give you that, not because they're bad people, but because it's not their job. And that's not they don't get paid to do that. And a lot of times being empathetic and understanding with you flies in the face of their true job, which is to protect the company. from people-related risk. And so, I think that's just part of the reason why Casework has just been so successful so quickly, is just because people needed a safe place that's separate and apart from corporate HR to talk openly and honestly about things that are happening to them, and then to get a path forward.
Yeah. It's so tough because I like to think I'm the type of HR leader that straddles the what's best for the business and what's best for the people. But you're right. If like I had to make a decision, I would have to make it for the business. Like if someone was like, bottom line, you have to. And like that's part of being HR. But I do think that there's a reality where if you're lucky and you have good leaders and you are a good HR leader, that you can say, like, hey, this is wrong for the business and how here's how it's going to impact the people. Or, yeah, this is what's right for the business, but you have to understand the people implications to them.
Right. And I actually don't think it's about leadership at all. I think it's about the company culture, right? So, like, I own businesses, I run payroll, right? There's just certain things that we just don't do. Like, there are just certain decisions I'm going to make because it's the right decision to make. Point blank, period. So these things can be done. Now, obviously, I'm a smaller business, right? I'm not a huge global conglomerate like some of these tech companies are, but that would make the argument even more enticing, right? You have all this money and all these resources, and you still choose to be an asshole when you could create a culture that, and I'm not saying people shouldn't be held accountable. I'm not saying that bad actors shouldn't be, treated as such, but I'm saying perhaps we shouldn't be laying people off when they come back from maternity leave.
That's pretty fair.
Perhaps when somebody's parents die, we shouldn't expect them to come back to work in 3 days.
3-day bereavement to me is wild. As somebody who has lost a parent and a sibling, if you were like, come back to work in 3 days, I'd be like, I didn't even shower for the first 3 days after both of those situations. Like, come back to work? Are you kidding me?
What are we doing? What
Yeah.
are we doing? If my parent died, you would not see me for months.
Catch it. Yeah. I feel really lucky. My dad died 1 month into a new job, and my manager had also experienced a parental loss, and they let me take like a month off. It was like a month paid.
I think that's really minimum. That's the least that folks can do.
But I had just started the job. Like I was literally 3 weeks in when this happened, and I was mortified. I was like, I'm going to lose my job. Like I'm going to have to be at work in 3 days, but I have to fly internationally to bury my father. What am I going to do? And I remember walking in and my boss being like, take as much time as you need. She also offered to pay for my flight to the Middle East to like bury my father. I was like, that is the kindest. I was like, that's so kind. I'm good. Thank you. Like, I was like, that feels like a bit of an overstep, but thank you. Like they offered all these things. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, I would give them anything in return for like the grace they gave me in like the worst, most traumatic moment of my life. How could I not show up and do great work for them? But like that's lost on so many people.
It goes back to my first point. These things are not impossible. They just don't want to do them.
Yeah. Gosh. God, I could talk about that for so long. When you're thinking about those terms like accountability and equity, what does it actually mean in terms of the workplace?
Yeah, I think accountability just means that everybody, like I said, is playing by the same set of rules, right? Like that when, I report harassment, that it's going to be taken seriously and not brushed off or, swept under the rug because it's an executive or because it's a white man. Right. Or, that when I go up for promotion, that everybody is going to be measured against performance and there's not going to be other things that are not related to performance that come into the decision making process that result in me not getting promoted. Like those are like operational examples of how the lack of accountability and inequitable outcomes show up every day in HR. And it's just like, this has been going on for decades, as well as I know. Like, this is just the way that it is. And because there's been no legitimate reason to change it, it just continues. But I think as Gen Z becomes more and more of a force in the world of work, they're going to have to, I mean, if they want workers, they're going to have to change their perspective because Gen Z values purpose, meaningful work, right? They're digital first, right? They want work-life balance. They don't believe in hustle culture. That flies in the face of capitalism as we know it today. And so I think, yeah, so I think that as companies, continue to fight for talent to the extent that they are in this kind of AI race that we're in, the winners are going to be those that are going to make a change, and the losers are the ones that are going to, stick to their guns.
I think about that all the time because I think about how during COVID, like 2020 hit. First of all, I went on this rant the other day with my CEO. I was like, HR people who worked in HR during COVID stayed and didn't go fractional or leave the space completely are built different. I was like, I feel like I have been through something literally traumatic in my life, a global pandemic, and then traumatic in the workplace because I still work in HR, right? Like I'm still internal HR. I'm like, I'm built different. Like, ain't no touching me. I've now survived this. I can make it through. But I've been thinking about this a lot lately because it was like we saw that movement in 2020 when it was like, oh, those who pivoted and went remote, nailed culture, really handled things well, set up good infrastructure for collaboration. They're going to be the winners. And I feel like we're coming out of that haze to like everyone forcing everyone back to the office. Or I'm like, I'm so confused because I thought we were on the path to do something different. And so I almost worry when you're talking about Gen Z, like, yes, we're going to want talent, really talented people in like 5, 10 years. But what if the company is just like, F it, I don't care? In the same way that they're doing it with return to office. Like, do you think that they're truly going to lose? Not that we have a crystal ball, but like, what do you
Yeah, I
think?
mean, I think a lot of this answer depends on where does AI go, right? Because they're saying 5 years away from artificial intelligence, which is AI being smarter than human beings, and without proper regulations on what we can and can't use AI for. I think that I'm just being as somebody who owns an AI company, right? And I understand what the technology can and cannot do. I think it's going to come down to AI, right? I don't think AI will replace all humans, but I do think that the way that we talk about work and work planning is going to change because, back in the day, we used to get, the business goals and objectives that translated to a head count number. We took it and said, okay, what skills do we have? What skills do we not have? That translates into a hiring target that's then passed on to recruiting to hire. Now that process is we get the goals from the company. Okay, can a human do this work? Can we automate this work, or can AI do that work? And so just that division of a desk now between human and non-human, between human and AI agent, is naturally reducing the amount of people that are needed to do work, right? So for companies that are like laying people off and lying about the reasons why, that's great for them. But then we got to think about, like, what does that mean for humanity? Because people are going to be out of work. So I think it just depends, right? Like, what is the future of AI? Are we going to get some regulations on the extent that it can be used for the greater overall protection of humanity and capitalism and all the things that we know to be true about just how we operate in society? I don't have a crystal ball, so
No, we don't know. Yeah.
I can't particularly say, but I do think if you want Gen Z to be in the world of work, because Gen Z, they just, I love Gen Z. They are out of
Yep.
control in the best way possible. Like Gen Z is
There's,
like, I will go start a YouTube page before I sit
yeah.
up here and listen to you be nasty towards me. And I love that for them. And so it creates this like weird, okay, how do we navigate this in a way that I don't think millennials really pressured corporate America to do.
We tried, and then they told us that we would never buy houses because of our addiction to avocado toast. So,
Right. And then also because, the internet and social media came about in 2010 ish, right? Is when it really started picking up, and Facebook went on the phone. Right. And so fast forward, you can now monetize and create personal brands and everything else from the internet. which that was developing as we were growing up. That's not something we were born into. Gen Z was born into that.
Yeah.
So they don't
Imagine.
know anything else.
I feel like such a boomer some days. The other day I was doing something and my direct report, who is Gen Z, she was like, "You're being such a boomer right now. Just like figure it out." And I was like, I didn't realize that would be like such an insult. But now I'm like,
Oh, I have boomer days too. I mean, there are parts of the internet that I think are great. And there are also parts of the internet that I think are horrible, and humanity would be better off without.
Twitter. Sorry. I hate Twitter so much right now. I will not be calling it X.
Anything that Mark Zuckerberg has to do with. It's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
terrible.
Well, you're reading Careless People, right? That's the title of the book.
I just finished it, and it is, I believe her. As an HR professional, I'm like, yeah, this sounds accurate.
You know that they're trying to take some places are saying they're trying to get the books off the shelf, right?
I don't blame them. I mean, what choice do they have? And I think the fact that they keep trying to like censor it makes people go buy it even more. Because I
Exactly.
wasn't going to buy it until I found out that they sued her
Yeah.
and stopped her from promoting the book.
Mm-hmm.
Which, to be honest, I don't ever think she was going to do anyway, because I went to her Facebook and it's like private with 1,500 followers.
Yeah, I went to her LinkedIn. I was like, wait a minute. What?
Yeah, I think she's trying to like cleanse her soul.
Yeah,
Like I think she feels complicit, and she rightfully should. And she's just trying to make it right.
you have to come back for like a book club episode where we just talk about that book chapter by chapter and we like break it down like all the
I
times HR should have intervened.
many books. Oh yeah, I hope she sued. Making her work during pregnancy leave, girl, that's a check. That's a check. That's a check all day and tomorrow. All that sexual stuff on the private jet, that's a check. Like,
I guarantee. Well, don't you think that she probably never signed a separation agreement, or however she left, she probably never signed anything so that she could write this book.
she's fired.
Yeah. So I hope
But
she didn't.
she probably never went and tried to get anything because like, she knew they were trying to make her sign an NDA.
Yeah, of course. That's a whole nother thing too, where that's also for another episode. Because when they came out and said like no more non-competes anymore, like the FTC said no more, not it was the FTC, right? And then every single state started their own lawsuit. Like Texas immediately started a lawsuit that was like, no, we don't. And I'm like, can we literally just talk about how we are so anti-worker with some of these laws, where I'm like, people should know if a company is treating them badly, but we make them sign separation agreements to cover our basis so that they can't go disparage us in the world.
Deep down in the pits of hell that is Texas, I mean, there's no workers' laws in Texas. Like, they damn near only have federal law as far as what can and can't be done. I mean, there's like maybe five. So it's just like it's no surprise to me that Texas was the first to sue. And yeah, I agree. It would be a whole nother podcast about the suppression of people's stories via
Separation agreements, as somebody who has signed them and I've signed and administered. I know my law. I know my I know my rights very clearly. Like,
same. And for
it's
the
tough.
minor amount of money,
Mhm.
like,
The freedom to say whatever you want to say in a time where I also feel like we're watching journalists and students and people have their rights stripped away, to then also think about the fact that I have signed a separation agreement, like, makes my soul want to die.
yeah, that's crazy.
But I
But
have, and we'll move on.
employees just want accountability,
They
and they
just
do
want,
not
yeah.
want to have to sign away their First Amendment right to be compensated for companies breaking the law.
And that accountability piece is so interesting to me. Like, why do you think there's such a gap between what employees expect and like what companies are actually delivering, other than the very obvious, like, I have to cover my ass legally? Like, why does that gap even exist? You would think all of us should want accountability.
Because companies yap and say a lot of shit that they don't mean. Ooh, crap, cuss on here. Say stuff that they don't mean, and it flies in the face of people's lived experiences, right? So it's like 1 minute targets like DEI, trans, yes, and then 60 days later they're like, nope, we
We
ain't
don't
doing
want to.
any of that. right? And that's like a macro example. But as you know, this goes on in micro ways and unheard of ways, stories that, from people saying, we had a client say, vice president in a meeting of executives, her boss asked her, said, "You stupid monkey, I can't believe you didn't know." What? What?
In a meeting in front of people?
You would be surprised. But these are the stories that never make the news. These are the stories that we hear at Cagebird HR every single day about people relocating themselves across the country only to be laid off, or they don't have any family. They don't have means to, pay $30,000 to move themselves back across country. So it's all while listening to executives tell them that we take care of our people and we want everyone, to bring their whole selves to work. And we want people to feel safe and like you understand, your role here and how we're changing the world. And then you go to people's lived experiences and it's all bullshit. And so those things never align.
But why? Like, because they don't have any incentive to make them align? Or that we're all just like play acting in corporate America? We're all just pretending.
Because companies don't want to make them align. We talk about the whole time. These companies don't care. They don't care. And the ones that do care, they don't have nearly enough data. Okay? They don't have it to accurately get an understanding of what is truly going on in these companies. They tout these employee engagement surveys that they do once a year. Okay? They do once a year. It takes 6 months to complete the survey, another 6 months to figure out what it all means, another 6 months to make a pretty presentation. And then by the time they release it, it's like 100 months later. And then they do nothing about it. So it's like, there are companies out there that want to do better. I don't think that they have nearly enough data and information, right, to make these decisions, understand like, okay, what is actually happening? Because they know that these surveys, people either lying or they don't complete them anyway. And if they are getting a positive, it's a false one. Like they know this, but they have to report on it because they asked the question, right? And so like part of the work that we do at Wrk Receipts, right? So Wrk Receipts is a mobile app that allows employees to document in real time what happens at work and understand from AI relevant information as it pertains to moments that matter in their career. There's 7,000 employees all across the country using this in every company imaginable, okay? At the same time, I take that data, anonymize it, scrub it, and get a real accurate picture of what the hell is going on in these companies in real time. And now it's my responsibility to figure out, okay, what do I do with this?
We've all had those head scratcher moments like, why did our star player just bail? Or who messed up payroll again? Yeah, those could have been dodged with a little help from Lattice. It's the all-in-one HR platform designed to power performance and stop HR regrets in their tracks. No need to sacrifice a solid tech stack for top-notch people programs. With Lattice, you get both. Ready to leave those regrets in the dust? Check out Lattice at lattice.com/no-regrets. Swing by lattice.com/no-regrets. Is it just me, or does multi-state HR compliance feel impossible to keep up with? 650 is here to help. With 650, you can generate handbooks, hiring paperwork, separation agreements, and more that's compliant in all 50 states. As laws change, your documents update automatically. Consider it your secret weapon for staying compliant without losing your mind. And with 650 AI, you can ask employment law questions in your own words and get quick, reliable answers without all the legalese. No more hunting down state law information, no more outdated policies, just peace of mind. Visit 650, SIXFIFTY.com to see why HR teams love 650. That's 650.com. I was about to say, what's the wildest thing you found out?
That there's patterns, that it's
Mm.
just, I mean, it's not even wild, right? It's only wild in that now I can prove it, right? And I'm not proving it from yesteryear. I'm proving it from this morning.
I need you to publish this stuff stat. I would
Yeah.
subscribe so fast. I'd be like, "Subscribe. I need to read the stats that you're collecting so fast."
So it's like, what do I do with this information, right? Because the problem that we're trying to solve is twofold, right? One is employees don't understand the law. They don't understand HR. They don't understand how to navigate these situations. So part of the problem I'm solving is by giving them this unrestricted access to information. Because the way that the technology works is that the user doesn't have to prompt anything. They only have to tell it what happens to them, and the technology does the rest. So you don't have to search. You don't have to ask questions. You just tell it what happened to you. Based on what state you live in, it tells you the relevant laws in your state and where to report things and about retaliation and all those different things, right? But then the other side of the coin is that it's a systemic cultural corporate America issue. And so now that I'm collecting a lot of data in real time every single day, it's like, is there an opportunity to help companies understand the very seriousness of what is happening in their companies from a probably the most honest perspective that they'll ever get, right? Because we're different. So Glassdoor, people are motivated by all kind of stuff, right? Revenge, you know, uh,
Revenge is very true.
yeah,
The
like
revenge
we're
plot.
motivated by all kind of stuff, right? But in Wrk Receipts, because people are entering it for the purpose of protecting themselves and or getting information, right? There's a preference for honesty, right? So it's like now I have an opportunity to be like, hey, this is the other side of that story. Like, if you want to do something about it, we can talk about the ways in which we can help you, but you can no longer hide from the truth. And so that's what we're trying to decide, right? Because now I have to judge companies on who they are, right? Because it's like, you might just want this data just because you want the data.
Not who they say they are. So that's my other issue with company values a lot of times is I find them so aspirational that then I'm like, this is fake. Like I try to remind people a lot, like values are usually written in an aspirational sense. They're not written in a here's what our actual day-to-day experience is going to be. And so that is just so interesting to me that you're sitting on that data and you have such a unique opportunity with what you're doing because I would kill for that data. Actually, that's dramatic. I would not commit murder, to be very clear. Um, on this podcast, I don't admit to that. I'm just kidding. But like, I would never, because I do think that gap is like so big, and so many companies either know there's a gap and are working on how to fix it, but don't know how, or they're completely oblivious because they're like everything's fine.
Right. So it's 7,000 people today, but think about it at scale, right? It's only been out for like 6, 7 months, right? So think about when there's like 100 million people on it and just all day, every day, just documenting things that are happening at work. There is no other, I mean, the University of Southern California already done told me they've never seen a data set like this. They've never seen a data set that is this up to date. They've never seen a data set that's company agnostic, right? If you name a company, I probably got their data.
Do you segment the data by company type? Like you're looking at industries or no? It's just like company size. What is it?
So we just started cutting by industry, right? Obviously, because of who I am and my background, tech workers are probably overrepresented in this set
Yeah.
because that's who, is
Yeah.
arguably
Yeah.
having, the hardest times at work, right? But the other part of this is when we get to folks who are in what I call low rights awareness environments. So think about wage and hour folks who are not unionized, the Amazon workers, the Wendy's workers, et cetera, who get exploited the most because they don't have, access to information. Wait till they get in the tool. Now we have even more data and information to understand, like, how can we reduce the likelihood of these negative experiences happening, right? So that's my whole goal. My goal is to get to a point where I'm predicting, because I can't prevent something that I can't predict, right? And so I want to use the data to understand what are the levers that when pulled at a certain time are more likely to result in a negative outcome than not. And if I can predict that, now I'm solving a $1 trillion attrition problem in which everybody wins, right? Because employees win when they stay in jobs longer, right? They're more economically secure, their mental health is better depending on the work environment, right? Companies don't have to turn over, and as you know, it's a head and a half every time you turn over a job, right? So it's like everybody wins if we can solve the nutrition problem, but nobody's been able to solve it for quite some time because nobody's had the data that we're collecting every day through Wrk Receipts.
Oh my God, I'm so excited. When you first announced it, I was like already quietly a fangirl. And then I was like very publicly a fangirl because I'm like, this is so fucking cool. This is such a problem. And I feel like in HR, a lot of times we try to solve the problems with like the absolute wrong solutions. And I'm just like, why? Like, it's so obvious sometimes what the real problem is. And like, I'm like, we can solve this. But sometimes we're like, oh, we don't know who our high performers are. Let's do performance management. I'm like, that's not what we should be doing.
And this is why I say HR people should build more technology products.
Damn
Like
straight.
this is the hill I'll die on. Or at a minimum, if you're going to be advising these tech bros who are trying to create the world's 99th payroll system, then you should at least get equity for that at a minimum. Because there's so many HR problems that non-HR people are trying to solve. Because HR people think that you can't solve the problem if you're not a technical founder. But yet still here I am. I haven't coded a single line of code. Yet and still there's a product in the market that 7,000 people are using. And it's such a it's it you really have to have HR technical understanding to even understand this problem enough to solve it. And because the tech bros don't understand HR, they don't have the kind of bandwidth or technical HR understanding to even know that, hey, there are people documenting what happens at work every single day. They're doing it in notes apps, they're doing it on Word docs, and it's a mess. You have to be in HR to understand that. Like you have to you have to have some understanding of employee relations, right? To know that I'm gonna do this investigation and I'm gonna ask them for any documentation they have. And when they send it to me, it's gonna be a cluster. And I'm gonna have to make sense of it all.
I can everyone listening, can you just see why I fangirl over this woman? Because I first of all, you're telling HR people that they can be founders, which I firmly believe. And every time I see in HR a new HR tool, the first thing I do it. I'm just gonna be honest, I do it. I go look up who made it. And I'm like, oh, so cute. You've worked at a CRM. Oh, like, I'm always like, it's always not HR people. And it is my also hill to die on with you. Like, I'm right there with you, pitching the tent, bringing the snacks, because more HR people should build tech. And I'm so like incredibly tired of non-HR people building it because it's creating like more problem. But then I think about how in venture capital, less than 2% of funding goes to women or underrepresented groups. And I'm like, okay, women make up the majority of HR, 70% of HR, but less than 2% of funding. So I'm like, oh, so I see what the problem is.
Yes, and because VCs are mostly men, white men, who have not had the same experiences as people of color in the world of work. So I started to raise a $1.5 million pre-seed round.
Mhm.
$500,000 of that was committed, and I turned it down. Not because I don't need it or want it, but because by the time they got their money together, I had started to find product market fit. And so I was like, okay, if I take this money, I have to fill out the round, and I don't have time to fill out the round, so I have to put it on pause. That's a conversation for another day. But because VCs are men, right? And because a lot of the tech bros are also white men who are making these products, they only develop and solve for problems that other people have already solved for. That's why we have 9,000 payroll systems. That's why we have 3,600 recruiting platforms. That's why we have 9 billion performance review softwares. right? But only one Wrk Receipts. That's not an accident. It's not an accident. It's just because we don't have enough people with the technical subject matter expertise building and solving for these very nuanced, very loud to us but invisible to others problems. So I tell people all the time, if you are an HR person, you start thinking about something that you could build, something you can design, like something. There are so many solutions out here between no code. Tech shops are damn near begging for work because AI has made it so easy to make these products. Like I built the MVP of Wrk Receipts for like 25 grand. And I didn't even pay for it with my own money. I used the money from Cageburg. So it's like, it is possible. And I think if that's one thing that, I don't really, I'm not a big like, oh, look what I'm doing type person. I just do the damn thing,
You
right? And
need to be like,
you'll feel me when Wrk Receipts has changed behaviors of companies all over the world, right? But if there's one thing that I feel like I could be proud of is encouraging and inspiring HR people to be like build the solution. Our position is not only as some advisor to other people who think they understand HR. Like, no, there's nobody that understands HR better than HR people because we just
yep,
been through too much shit.
yep.
So it's like, why would you enable other people to go make millions of dollars and you're getting paid $15,000 or whatever it is? We can just go build the thing.
Oh my God. Thank you for saying this. I will always be your biggest fan. Would like to
Yes,
apply to be the president of your specific fan club and
I.
just
It
know I
was
will
some,
be there with you. It's so true. Can I tell you the amount of DMs I get a week of like technical founders being like, I'm building this tool for HR and I'd love to pick your brain. And
no.
I literally want to be like, why would I tell you my ideas?
Was that coming like equity shares? Like, is that an advisor agreement? Like, at a minimum, HR should not be giving out this knowledge for free.
I'm like, you better be, I own half your company now. Like, yeah, I'll give you my feedback, but now I own 50% of your cap table. It's mine. Just kidding. But I get those messages all the time. And honestly, like I haven't responded to them, but lately I feel like I'm going to start responding and being like, it's really inappropriate that you would expect that I would give you knowledge for free. So if you want to talk to me in an advisor capacity, or you're going to pay me for this, those are two options. Otherwise, I am not available.
Just tell them, send over the advisor agreement. They know what that is. It's an exchange for you advising them for shares in their company. That's what that is.
It's just so, but people expect it. The part that really bugs me is like, you expect me to do free work for you. And I feel like you just said all of us can build our own thing. So like I want people listening to hear that. Like you can build something.
And I don't have a co-founder, by the way. It's just me on my crap table. So the fact that there's a product that's being developed and I have not given anybody co-founder shares, okay, it is possible. It's 100% doable. Now, it's nothing about easy, but it can be done.
Yeah. I mean, I love that. That's like our rallying cry right now. Everyone better be hearing that. Go build something. But I mean, like, I love the way you approach it though, because the way that you're saying, like, that we're experiencing the world of work different than most of the people building technology about work. And that always bugs me. It's the thing about HR tech that has historically irritated me, because there are these like invisible systems. And I want to touch on those real quick. Like, what are these invisible systems or habits that we even have at work that can actually quietly sabotage equity and fairness?
I mean, I think it's like things that we experience, but we don't really call upon, right? Like the Good Boys Club, like flowers being at, the rodeo get down bar when everybody doesn't drink. It's environments where that are not inclusive, but where information flows freely, like the golf course, right? It's people not acknowledging or addressing the fact that they have bias, right? That people promote people that they like, right? That people promote people and look out for people and mentor people and extend resources to people that look like them as opposed to those who don't. Like these are all realities that we live with every day that translate directly into work. Like just because we're in a work environment, that does not mean that racism and sexism and harassment and things don't follow us into work as well. And I think when I listen to some of these leaders in HR talk, it's like, are y'all okay? Like Just because we're at work, that doesn't mean like there are racists in HR. There are flat foot racists in HR. And everybody acts like there isn't. And it's like there are racists who are making decisions, material decisions of consequence for other people at work. And so these are not moments that are like, of course, there are the big ones where a woman gets slapped on her butt out, walking out of a meeting and some dude says, good job. But then there are also ones that are just, in passing by around, hey, we're going to go grab a drink later to the woman who doesn't drink. And, knowing that information is getting passed and you get to, learn who's who and who's the decision maker or talk about yourself in an informal setting in the work that you're doing, all of these things compound to who gets promoted and who's not. I'm sure you've been in calibration sessions where, magically all the white men who frequent the bar with the boss are at the top of the list and everybody else is at the bottom.
Yeah.
And it's like, if HR is not going to say something, then who is?
That's the thing I've said a lot. Like, we have to be like, HR people who don't do conflict are wild to me, because I'm like, the very basis of us doing our job right is you have to be able to push back on everything we've ever built. Those invisible systems, those little things, they're actually holding back your company, and you as HR are complicit. Like,
Absolutely.
there are decisions we've had to make as a company where I'm like, I hate that we had to make this decision, but I like, as long as I will rally and I will fight. Like, that is one thing that I wish more employees understood, is if you thought I was behind closed doors just agreeing to everything, wrong. We are supposed to be there to push people. We are there to like check ourselves and check every leader around us. And so when I meet HR people that are like, oh, well, I just hate conflict, or like, I don't like that, I'm like, maybe you shouldn't be in this job, because nothing is going to get better. Like, if we are in a seat of power, we have our seat at the table, nothing's going to get better unless we push back.
No. And then when you have, we talked about this earlier, but when white women are the majority of HR, right? And they are presented with these opportunities to advocate and to speak up, right? And they don't, because they benefit themselves from the system. White women have a unique position where they can choose to be, the victim of the discrimination, or they can perpetuate it at any given moment. And I think that's also a problem in HR, is that we don't have nearly enough diversity in race or gender at the top of HR, right? When you look at where Black women are relative to HR, at the tops of the house, it's always in DEI roles, which, yeah, pay attention, are either being rebranded, reduced in size and scope, or completely eliminated. And so I think, the problems with HR, they definitely compound. But I think, times are changing. I think there are a lot of people, white, Black, brown, and in between, who are HR professionals who are starting to speak up about the fact that the way that the function works on a day-to-day basis just doesn't work. And it's making people's jobs harder, right? And we've been accused of trying to make HR's job harder, by giving people access to, this information that they get through Wrk Receipts. And my argument is, HR people love us. I don't know what you're talking
You're
about.
making my job easier, actually. Thank
Yes.
you.
Yes. Because you all at HR is no longer like the sole point of information anymore. Like, now HR is coming to you all because they understand the rules, because they understand what their rights are. And it makes your job easier, right? When they have documentation, when they can prove these things, and you don't have to go off he said, she said anymore, because people have been documenting things all along. And so it really takes that kind of gray area out of it, and that conflict where we feel like we're at conflict with ourselves as HR people between doing the right thing and doing what the company wants. Because now employees are coming to us with situations that are clear, cut, and dry. It's like, well, they actually showed me the email. So, there's no more like, I don't have to gaslight this person, or I don't have to like deny their lived experiences because they don't have documentation. So,
Yeah. Also, let's be clear, like, what you're building, when you say like it is helping HR people, it's also helping like me learn and grow. Like, I also have my unconscious bias. I also have my lived experience that informs how I show up. I guarantee things that I could learn to be a better HR leader. And if someone gave me the tool and said, here's how your employees are experiencing the world, or like, here are your blind spots, or here are things you might not know, I would eat that shit up. Because like, I'm not perfect either. Like, my only goal in life is like, let's create a better future of work. But I also understand that means I have to unlearn a lot of my bad behaviors. And I'm still on the path to like, how can I get smarter? How can I be a better ally? How can I be aware of all the issues that are happening? How can I build more inclusive cultures? And that means like taking my lived experience, also doing learning and pushing myself further to like actually build better workplaces. Because it doesn't just happen overnight.
No. And I think the more users we get, the more data we collect. At one point, I'll be able to go to Google and say, "Hey, look, a third of your folks already have your data." Like, it's not even me getting the
I
data. Is
already
not,
got it. You don't
I
got to give
already
it to me anymore.
like, the best I can do for you is anonymize it and cut it as of 2 minutes ago, and we can sit here and have a conversation about like what this means for you and like how to improve your world of work. And I think equipped with that data, at least in HR, just because I know HR people, because I'm one of them, I think if given the opportunity to do the right thing, the HR people will do the right thing. But so long as we are stuck in these, be able to feed ourselves or screw this person over environments, right? Like, we're never going to get to that point. But if, like you said, I were to come to you and your company and say, "Hey, look, here's the deal. Half of your folks are already using this to log. Like, let's get a deal such that you can see completely anonymized versions of this, and we can work together to figure out like what's the best path forward, or y'all can take it and do what you want to do with it. But there's also going to be some accountability that you have to report back, because what I'm not in the business of doing is just giving people data just for you to, flip it and tumble it and put it into a pretty presentation, right? Like, if for that, I could just keep it to myself and keep helping employees directly, right? So like, we want to work with companies that believe in the work that we're doing, that want to do the right thing, and that just don't necessarily have the data to be able to empower and encourage the business to actually take a meaningful step. Because that's a part of the issue too, right? Like, HR people, we love to say we got to sit at the table, but any seasoned HR person say that's a damn lie. Like, at the end of the day, it always comes down to what the business wants. And and we have to convince the business, and one of the ways that we do that is with data. So
With data. God, I'm so excited for this fucking future. Okay, what's one shift that you think has to happen in the next 5 years to truly make accountability and equity non-negotiable at work?
I think companies just have to decide that this is something that they want to do. Like we talked about, Gen Z and the world of work changing. And I think the leaders who are worth their salt will recognize that, hey, we cannot continue to operate in the same way that we have before, like, or else it's going to be really, really hard for us to recruit and retain top talent, because AI can only take you so far, right? We talked about this earlier, how, what can AI do versus what can humans do? And so it's going to come down to like, how do we recruit the best thinkers, not necessarily the best doers? And the problem with trying to recruit thinkers is that they think. They think about how they want to live their life. They think about what type of experiences they want to have, what type of people they are at the end of their lives. When they look back and they say, this part of my life was a part of my life where I was doing good work, I was doing meaningful work, I wasn't harming anybody, I wasn't trying to, inflict devastation upon anybody. I could do work that I was proud of. And companies that recognize that this is a priority for generations to come will start to make some adjustments. And those who don't will continue to take, the iron fist approach, and we'll see how that goes.
Good luck. Good luck retaining your talent. I think the part about like it costs 2x an employee's salary to replace them. I also think about all the burden you're putting on like the hiring manager, the hiring team, everyone interviewing, and the recruiter. That 2x, if people really did the math on what their attrition is costing them, that should be driving the conversations we are having. I can't lose this talent because this talent is going to cost me 200K to replace. I wish more companies looked at that loss and that became a data point that like finance has it, we also rolled into the table and we're like, we're costing, like our attrition is costing us X amount. How do we solve this problem?
Yeah.
Like
I
I
mean,
gotta,
to be fair, I don't think that that's like outside of the purview of like, you know, the C-suite. I just think that they don't have a solution.
yeah, they have to do something. If that's the thing I'm saying, like we need to roll with that data and be like,
to solve the problem.
now we got to solve the problem.
Right.
Right.
Because they do these exit interviews.
Oh God.
They do exit interviews
We're
that
winging. Yeah.
a bunch of nothing.
Yeah.
And they can't synthesize that and see like, okay, it's not just this one-off person, right? Because you do exit interview, what happens? They say, oh, it's just that one person, and then they move on to the next one, and next one, but nobody goes back and says, okay, of all the exit interviews we had this year, first of all, I'm not even collecting the data in like a way that is digestible later on down the line. So that's like problem number one. So I just think they just don't know how to solve it. I think they talk about it and they just accept it as a cost of doing business as opposed to something that they should put some energy and effort into solving because they don't know how.
Well, we're going to solve it. You're going to help us solve it, right? This
I
has
am.
been, first of all, I'm so honored. I truly don't think this is the first or last time the last time you'll be on the podcast. I'm going to have you back because we have so many other things we have to get to. I'm just so thankful you spent time with me today because I'm really excited about what you're building. And like employees really want companies to be accountable. They want equity. So like you just basically broke it down in a masterclass of like, here's how you actually do it. So for people who want to work with you, want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Yeah, so you can follow me. My personal Instagram is Cierra.ceo, or on LinkedIn, it's just regular Cierra Gross. If you are looking to download the Wrk Receipts app, you don't need me to do that. You can just go on the Google Play Store or the Apple Store, search Wrk Receipts and download it. Or if you are looking for independent HR support through any myriad of issues going on at work, you can book an appointment at cagebirdhr.com. or follow us on any social media, cagebirdhr or Wrk Receipts. No O, just WRK Receipts.
Love that. And I'll link all of that in the show notes too, because I obviously want more and more people downloading the app because I'm like, I want the data. I'm looking forward to the Wrk Receipts quarterly report where like every quarter you tell me 3 things I should be doing because I'm like, help me. I need it. We all do. We all do. To be clear, everyone listening, we all need the data and some help.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. We're excited about the future, but thank you so much for having me. I know we've been trying to get this done for a long time. And
We got it.
anytime you want to come back and want me to yap about, all the stuff going on in HR. And for all the HR people listening, go build something. Stop telling these kids how to do this stuff. Go build it yourself. It's totally possible.
Hell yeah.
Thanks for tuning in. Keep up with all the latest HR resources by subscribing on Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you listen. And if you love I Hate It Here, tell an HR friend. I'll see you next time.